Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll go through the Warcry fighter cards and ability cards are made for the KRULEBOYZ, and I'll show you how you can download them for free and use them in your own game. With the pre-order now available for the Dominion box set, I thought this would be the perfect time to make the video so that we can use the KRULEBOYZ in Warcry. So in this video we'll go through the fighter cards I've made and also the abilities, and then you can print these off for personal use at home and use them in your own game. So let's get started, and first we'll go through the abilities, then the fighter cards, and then I'll show you how to download them. So here we go, here's the ability cards, and so the first ability, any of the members of the warband with the KRULEBOYZ rune mark can use this ability, and this is a double called Scare 'em Good. If two fighters are within 2 inches of each other, roll a dice. On a 4+, any enemy fighters within 2 inches of both fighters must move back 1d3 inches. So the idea behind this ability are the scare shields that we heard about, and with these, if you've got 2 or more fighters together, then they can use those shields to push the enemy back and make them a little bit apprehensive, taking a little step away from them. So the idea is it's 1d3 inches in a straight line, and you move them away from the friendly fighter that they're closest to. The next ability that any of the fighters with the KRULEBOYZ rune mark can use is a quad called Stinky Backstabbers, and until the end of this fighter's activation, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of attack actions made by this fighter. In addition, each time any fighter, and that can be an enemy or a friendly fighter, is taken down by an attack action made by this fighter, this activation, this fighter can make a bonus move action. And this ability is based on their cunning and ruthless tactics that they'll use, and so they can even take down one of their own friendly fighters, especially if one of them's low and took some damage already. They've only got a few points left. Maybe they'll take them out to save their own skin so they can make that bonus move action and get away. So I really like the idea of adding this sneaky aspect to this ability. For the rest of these fighter abilities, we'll go through them alongside each fighter so you can see which ones they apply to. But those two are the kind of ones that any members of the warband, as long as they've got the KRULEBOYZ rune mark, they'll be able to use it. Next, we've got the leader abilities for the KRULEBOYZ, and there are 2 that any leaders with the KRULEBOYZ rune mark can use. And the first one is a double called Go Get 'em. Until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the move characteristic of friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. This ability are based on the idea that the leaders are really pushing the kind of chaff units forward and getting them to take the brunt of the damage from the enemy. And so I included that as a double, and again any leader can use that as long as they've got that KRULEBOYZ rune mark. And the next ability that any leader with a rune mark can use is called Cunning Tactics. Until the end of the battle round, friendly fighters within 9 inches of this fighter can make a bonus disengage move. And the idea with this, again, it's building into that cunning and the whole tactics that they like to use. And so they're quite sneaky, they can get in, but then they like to retreat a little bit and escape. So they're kind of going in, doing some sneaky stabs, and then getting out of there to fight on another day. So there we go, so that's the triple ability. And now let's move on and start looking at the fighters individually with their individual rune marks and abilities. Okay, so here's our first fighter, and you'll see that the rune mark in the top left for the warband, on these cards that you'll see on the screen here, this is the Bone Splitters rune mark, but when you download the PDF, there'll be a rune mark for the KRULEBOYZ that matches the rune marks we saw previously on the ability cards. But let's get started with this fighter, and this is the Killer Boss on Great Gnashtooth. So this is our first leader that we can choose for the KRULEBOYZ, and he comes in at 265 points. He's got a movement of 8, toughness 5, can take 40 wounds. He's got the leader rune mark, the mounted rune mark, and the warrior rune mark. And you can see he's got 2 weapon options here. And the first one is that spear with a range of 2, making 3 attacks, strength 5, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. He's also got a second option with that spear, and he can throw it. And so the range of this would be a minimum 3, maximum 8. He can make 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. So this is going to be the highest point value fighter for this warband, and you can see he's a pretty tough customer, being able to take 40 wounds. He can cover a lot of distance there, being mounted with a movement of 8, and he's also pretty strong as well. So all around, this would be a great leader to choose. You would use up a quarter of your points, but I think it's worth it. But let's have a look at the abilities before we make our mind up, and here we go. Here are the abilities that we can use with this leader. So as a leader, we know he can use the double go get them and the triple Cunning Tactics, but now he's also got this double for that warrior rune mark called Fangs of Fury. Until the end of this fighter's activation, the next time this fighter finishes a move action within 1 inch of an enemy fighter, pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and allocate 1d6 damage to that fighter. With this ability, I was going to make it that the damage is equivalent to the value of the ability, but I really like the idea of rolling a d6 damage so that it's really random and you just don't know. It could be good, it could be bad. So I wanted to bring that into the game, and I think adding these little rules of your own and customizing a little bit makes it really fun. So there we go, that's the abilities for our first leader, the Killer Boss on Great Gnashtooth. Now we're on to our next leader option, and this is probably my favourite model from the whole Dominion box set, and that's the Swamp Collar Shaman. And at 195 points, it's a good point value for a leader. You can see we've got movement 3, so a bit slower, toughness 4, but can still absorb those wounds, being able to take 28. We've got the leader rune mark, the mystic rune mark, and also the thrall rune mark. And we've got 2 weapon options. The first one is a standard kind of shaman mystic ability, or weapon, sorry, which is 3 to 7 range. You can make 2 attacks, strength 3, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. And then below that, we've got another weapon option. So if you get too close, that staff is going to come and that's going to hit you like a club. And so that's going to do a little bit of damage, and that's got a range of 2. You can make 3 attacks with that, strength 4, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. So we've got a couple of options there, but you notice we've got that thrall rune mark. So before we look at all the abilities, let's have a look at what that thrall rune mark might apply to. And you guessed it, it had to be the Hobgrot, and so you can team these two up, and they've both got that thrall rune mark there, so we'll see that as we look at the abilities in a moment. But this guy's going to come in at 55 points. He's got movement 3, toughness 3, can take 8 wounds. He can make his attack with a range of 1. He's got 3 attack dice to roll, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So he's not going to do an awful lot there. He's certainly not going to do much damage, but at only 55 points, you're not going to get a lot more. But it's the ability that's going to make him worth having in the warband, and also it's a cool looking model, and having these two paired up, one as your leader and him as a little sidekick, I think would be great fun. But now let's check out the abilities that we can use with both of these miniatures. The first ability is a triple called Swamp Gas. Until the end of the battle round, subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic to a minimum of 1 of attack actions made by enemy fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. So it's this triple ability that we could use with our Swamp Caller Shaman, and the idea here is he produces this swamp gas and it suffocates the enemy, and then so that's reducing the number of attacks they're capable of making. Next up, we've got a quad called Potent Bruise, and our Swamp Caller Shaman can only use this if the Hobgrot is on the battlefield, and so the Hobgrot acts as like their kind of thrall, and so they can control them and work with them to produce their potent bruise. And so for this ability, we can add the value of this ability to the move characteristic of friendly fighters within 9 inches of this fighter when this fighter uses this ability until the end of the battle round. So it's within 9 inches of the Swamp Caller Shaman. And just to clarify, the Hobgrot doesn't have to be close to the Swamp Caller Shaman. They can be anywhere on the battlefield, but they do have to be in play. So it's important to note that you could kind of hide them at one end of the battlefield and have your Swamp Caller Shaman at another, but you can still make use of that ability just as long as they're both in play. But the effect is from 9 inches of the Swamp Caller Shaman. For our next fighter, we've got the Killer Boss, and this is another leader option here, and this is coming in at 195 points, and we've got movement 4, toughness 4, and can take 25 wounds. We've got the Trapper rune mark, the Leader rune mark, and the Destroyer rune mark. And this guy's got 2 weapon options. The first is this like ball and chain, this flail, and he can make that with a range of 2, can make 2 attacks, strength 5, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. And if he gets a bit closer, he's got another option, with a weapon range 1, making 3 attacks, strength 5 again, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. So this guy's pretty strong, and taking 25 wounds as well isn't bad at all, and having those 2 decent weapon options are going to make him pretty tricky. But let's check out his abilities. You'll notice he's got the Trapper ability, and this is going to link to another one of the Grots. So let's have a look at that Grot first, and then we'll move on to the abilities. And this little guy is the Stab Grot, and he's going to work in conjunction with your killer boss if you choose to bring him on the battlefield, and he's going to have a value of 55 points. It's got movement 3, toughness 3, can take 8 wounds. He's got that Trapper rune mark that links him to the leader, and then with his weapon, it's a Stabber, and that's a range of 1. It's going to make 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So again, low points. You're not going to get a lot of damage from this guy, but it's really the ability that makes him worth including in the warband, and being able to team him up with the leader is just really fun. So let's have a look at those abilities next. Just like the other leaders, the killer boss can use the double Go Get 'em and the triple Cunning Tactics, but he's also got his own ability now, so let's have a look at that one, and that's a double called Hold 'em Off. Until the end of the battle round, this fighter may allocate any damage points they take to a friendly fighter with the Trapper rune mark, as long as they are still in play and within 1 inches of them. So you see that that Trapper rune mark doesn't do anything on its own, but is linked to this one, the Destroyer. And so he can use that Stab Grot to get in the way and take some hit points for him. And that's all kind of based on the narrative that came along with the set, the Dominion box set. And so I went with that, and I thought that was a really fun idea to use for this little guy in the warband. That's all the leaders that we can choose, and don't forget you can have a leader and a hero, so you could potentially use 2 of those leaders in your warband. But let's move on and take a look at the fighters, and the first one is the Merc Knob with Belcher Banner, and this guy's coming in at 155 points. He's got a movement 4, toughness 4, and then he's going to be able to take 15 damage. He's got that Screaming Skull rune mark, so he's going to get an ability of his own, and with his weapon he can use that big crazy mask there, that Belcher Banner, to deal some damage from a range of 3, can make 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So he's pretty tough, pretty strong, can make a few attacks, but it's really the ability that's going to prove this guy. So let's have a look at that now. Just like all the fighters with the KRULEBOYZ rune mark, he can use that double and quad, but he's got his own ability, the Screaming Skull, which is a double called Belcher Banner. Until the end of the battle round, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of enemy fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. And this ability is based on some of the background that was given in some of the articles from Games Workshop, and with that banner he's got that tongue that he's taken out of the beast, and that's emitting this gas and doing some damage to the enemy, reducing their strength and ability to fight in the battle. So there we go, that's our Merc Knob with Belcher Banner. Our next fighter is the Man-Skewer Bolt Boys, so we get 3 options with the Dominion box set. So I've done a card for each one that you'll see in a little while, but this one's going to come in at 150 points, got a movement 4, toughness 4, can take 15 wounds. We've got the Scout rune mark, so we're going to get an ability that they can use on their own, and then they've got 2 weapon options. The first is this range weapon, and I wanted to make this quite powerful, so I've gone for minimum range 6, maximum range 20. They can make 2 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. But if they do get up close, they can hit with their crossbow or their fists, and then that's going to be at a range of 1, making 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. So you do get quite a lot here for 150 points, and if you can keep them out of the fight and at range, they can certainly put some damage on the enemy. And at 150 points, I'd be tempted to put 3 of these into the warband. And here's the 3 different fighter types that we've got images for. So I've done 3 cards in the PDF that you'll be able to download. So if you want to use all 3, then you certainly can with these. And here's the abilities. And with that Scout rune mark, they're going to get a double called Pin 'em Down. Until the end of this activation, if any attacks hit, then the target or target's move action is halved, rounded down, until the end of the battle round. And the idea here is they're shooting these really big bolts, and they're going to do some serious damage, but they're also, if they go through one of the enemy fighters, they could potentially pin them to the ground or some scenery. So I really like that idea, and I wanted to include that somehow into the ability. So that's our Man-Skewer Bolt Boys, and so let's move on to the next fighter. And our next fighters are the Gut Rippers, and these are coming in at 85 points. They've got a movement 4, toughness 4, and can take 12 wounds. They've got this spear, so they've got a range of 2, can make 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So that shield's giving them that extra point of toughness, taking them to 4, and with that range as well, they can still make 2 attacks there. And so they've got no special abilities of their own, but you really want to be using the abilities that all the members of the warband can use. And again, I've done 3 cards for these, so you can use some of the different fighters in the different poses without having to duplicate your cards. And then for these, I'd say try and use that double scare 'em good ability that's really set up for them. Now we're on to the final fighter card, and that's the Hobgrot Slitters, and these are coming in pretty low at 55 points. They've got a movement 3 with their stumpy legs, they've got a toughness of 3, and then they can take 8 wounds. They've got the minion rune mark, so they're going to get an ability of their own, and their weapon range is 1, they can make 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So for this low points, you're not going to do a lot of damage with their weapons here, and they're certainly not going to take a lot of damage either, but they do get a cool ability that we'll have a look at in a while. And here we go, here's the 2 different poses I've gone for, so you can play a couple of different ones if you want to. And here's their ability. This is a triple called Lob 'em High Boys, and this is based on those grenades that they can throw. So with this ability, we choose a position anywhere within 6 inches of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 3+, all enemy and friendly fighters within 6 inches of the position take 1d3 damage. So this is a pretty good ability, and there's a good chance it's going to actually go off, and then they could do some serious damage, but it's going to be to enemy and friendly fighters, so you've got to watch out and pick your spots carefully. That covers all the fighter cards and abilities for the KRULEBOYZ Warband for Warcry, and if you'd like to download the PDF and give it a go, then just head to my Patreon page, and then the PDF will be there. It's all totally free. You don't have to join Patreon unless you want to, and you can then print that PDF off for personal use and then play it in your own game. And I'll put a link in the description that takes you straight to that post. I'll also put some links in the description where you can get the Dominion box set and potentially get it for just under £100 too with some online retailers. And then you can also find out much more about that in my previous video, all about the prices for the new products that came out for the Age of Sigmar. Those links will be affiliate links, but they won't cost you anything extra. In fact, you can save up to that 20%, and you also support the channel. So thanks so much for that. It's really awesome. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'll be great to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the video, and it'd be great if you download and give this a go. I'd love to hear what you think about it and any feedback you'd like to make. If there's anything you would change, or if I've made any mistakes, or if anything doesn't make sense, then just ask below in the comments or on Patreon page. It'll be great to hear from you. But thanks so much for watching. Have fun if you download the PDF. Please like the video if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games.